Also, please put any electronic devices on silent mode. For new visitors, information about the service today and upcoming events can be found in the other service. We do have visitor information cards and would love for you to fill one out. Please see an usher for this. Each Sunday we collect food items for Central Rural Community Services and put them in a basket on the podium during the first hymn. Join us for lunch and interesting conversation after the service today. Now let's take a moment to strengthen our connections and move on along. Hello all, this is Marie Taylor going to come up and fill us in on the latest in our story.
Good morning, I'm Maureen Taylor and I have an announcement for the search committee. I am sure that you're all wanting to know the name of the mystery minister that we have selected. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that yet. So that's not my announcement. We shouldn't have that soon though. We're just, the UUA Transitions Office says we have to have the contract all worked out and approved by the board before we can announce any names. And we're hoping that that will finally come to pass this week and we'll be able to tell you soon. I do have a couple of really important things to tell you though. And those are when you will get to meet her. And it was okay that I tell you that it's meeting her. We do have a woman selected. We think it's just absolutely great. I think you will too. The transitions office said that they set the dates for everything, and they said that she was to be here to meet people and to run the service and everything. During the weekend, and we said, that may work for every other church in the country, but it's not going to work here. You couldn't even find a hotel at a reasonable, at any sort of price, probably, for Derby weekend. So it will be the following weekend, which is Mother's Day. She will be here that Saturday and we'll have the service on Mother's Day, and she'll be here the whole week meeting with all the various committees in the church and various interested people and all the staff. And then the following Sunday, she will also be in charge of the service. That's the 19th, and that's the date you really, really, really need to be here, because then we will have a vote right after church, the vote to, I certainly hope we expect the vote to call her as our next Southern minister. So we have a lot to look forward to in May. Remember, May 19th. Thanks.
We like this challenge for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
The opening words this morning are from the Sufikoi Hafiz. Now is the time for you to know that everything you do is sacred. Now is the time for you to understand that all your ideas of right and wrong were like the child's training wheels to be used when you needed them, and then discarded when you could finally live with integrity and love. Now is the time for the world to know that every thought, every action is sacred. Now is the time for all of us to deeply compute the impossibility that there is anything other than grace. Now is the season for us to know that everything we do is sacred. Please rise now and embody our spirit for our first hymn. The words will be overlaid. In my soul, there's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me now somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul. Let's say now together our mission and covenant. We are a church of reason and spirit that witnesses for progressive faith, nurtures our community, and transforms our world. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Each Sunday, we take time in our worship service to lift up the joys and sorrows of our lives, experiences that challenge us, experiences that we celebrate. And we bring those experiences alive into the sacred time and place as a way of discovering the meaning they bring to us. You always have the option of writing a joy or sorrow that you'd like read. Go to the back of the sanctuary to begin hear today's written joys and sorrows. From Clorella Ziegner. I had an accident on Friday, fell by falling and dislocated my shoulder. At Norton, they took me to sleep and popped it back into place, but it is still sore. I'm facing some medical bills, but we'll hope it is healing, though slowly. From the Kentucky Student Environmental Coalition, a big thank you. Among other notes, the group put together a thank you card, a congregation size thank you card for us. And many of the comments, which I'd invite you to come up after the service and read, many of the comments talk about this space here as lovely and welcoming and inclusive. Happy birthday tomorrow, Jamison Dolan, who will be 13. Good luck to those parents of teenagers. Grandma Nancy is here from Michigan to help us celebrate. A joy, Christy Lunsford has been invited to be a candidate at a wonderful congregation. Sort of similar to Maureen's announcement earlier, the name of the congregation can't be disclosed until after that congregation finishes some of the business we have to do here. But any day now, that will be disclosed. Joy from Donna Corbett, my Aunt Julia has passed and is no longer in pain. She lived a full and lively life and traveled the world as a nurse. So often we carry with us joys and sorrows that are too deep to be spoken, but that we want to mark anyway. If you have such joy or sorrow with you this morning and would like to mark it by coming up and dropping a stone into our bowl of community water that we gather each August when we start the new church year, please do so now as we sing.
I've got peace like the river in my soul. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like the river in my soul. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like the ocean in my soul. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like the ocean in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like the river in my soul. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like the river. I've got peace like the river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul.
This morning I want us to do a body prayer. This will be familiar to some of you who've done it a few times before. Let me remind you of how this works and also remind you also not to ask your body to do something that it doesn't want to. It begins with arms open and a gesture of saying, I accept what comes to me. Then arms over your heart, hands over your heart, saying, I take whatever comes to me into myself as a way of finding the meaning of that experience. And then arms out in a gesture of service. I offer what meaning I found to anyone else who might offer. I'll take us through this 3 times. I'll talk us through it a couple of times. We'll do the last time in silence. Please rise and body your spirit if you're able. Arms open wide as we take in whatever comes to us, rather than running or fighting. Hands over heart as we gather it into us to search for the meaning. Hands out in service as we offer that meaning to those around us. Acceptance, reflection, offering. Blessed be.
My silent song, deep inside all, I hear you sing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, sing. Calming my dreams, quenching my tears, burn all my feet, sing.
This morning, if you are feeling grateful for this church and would like to continue to support its missions, both within and outside its walls, please consider donating as the plate is passed. Any contribution is welcome and appreciated.
One of the primary duties, maybe the primary duty of an interim minister, like that as your interim minister, is to get you ready to welcome the next civil minister. And as you heard from Maureen, we're almost there. You have a minister, she will be with you in about a month, and then you're good to go. But I want to make sure that you end as well as you begin, and that when the minister comes to spend a week with you, that you make a really good first impression on her. Now, obviously, some of your work's already been done by the search committee, because they clearly made a very good first impression on her, but now that ball is in your court. So we're going to practice a little bit this morning, and I'll probably have you do this again on another Sunday before she gets here, maybe a different form of this, because I want to be certain that when she comes and is spending that week with you, that when she goes back home to get ready to relocate here, that she is saying to herself, I am so excited, I picked the best congregation in the world, and not saying, oh my God, what have I got myself into? So that week she's here, there'll be a lot of opportunities for y'all to ask questions of her as a way of beginning to get to know her. So what I want us to do this morning, you know, we always worry about asking a dumb question. So we're going to do a little practice this morning to make sure that when she gets here, we've got all the dumb questions out of the way and only the really good questions are left. So you'll need a conversation partner, or you can have 2 or 3, however you want to do it. And I'm going to take you through a couple of question asking exercises. And after we've done this, maybe when we all head off for lunch afterwards, you might share some of the questions that came up in your group with members of the search committees. This might be useful for them to pass along to the ministers. So what I want you to do first with your conversation partner is figuring that you have one chance to ask this minister a question, because that's a busy week and there's a lot of people, so you're going to get one shot. What question do you most need to ask? And I'd especially like our young people to be part of this too, because as I was thinking about this, when I had been in that minister's shoes, when I was the settled minister coming to lead a new congregation, it was the questions kids asked me that I remembered most. Forget the grown-up questions. I kind of guessed what they were going to ask me, but the kid questions were great. So those of you who are in a conversation with a young person, you might especially listen to their question and take it as your own. Okay. Okay, you have just a couple of minutes, so figure out what questions you want to ask.
Social action, fundraising, group dynamics, sermon giving, counseling. Just here for I guess that's what you like. I think that we've had ministers here that have been very good serving givers, but not such people. I think that there have been pretty good in social action, but not so good in counseling. So I think it's a different kind of. I mean, they're just great, so if you ask me.
Okay, I'm going to call you back. She only has a week with you, so I need to have your questions ready to go when she gets here. Okay, now we're going to flip this. What question do you hope she asks you? Which is a way of saying, what do you hope she's curious about you of? Or another way you might think of it is, what would you most like to tell her about the church? And so then in turn, you hope she asks you a question that will give you a chance to say that to her. What do you hope she's going to ask you?
All the different roles you play at church, Jane. Which one are you focusing on? How can I help you do what you need to do at church? What do you hope she is? Because she was thinking, it's not for the picture name. It's not the favorite people said that. So I think she needs to know. Pretty important member of the church, and if you need to ask you, are you going to stay here a lot longer and pray more people than you did? And I've been watching a whole lot of Queer Eye on Netflix and episodes of people that had their lives all compartmentalized. And
You let me call you back.
Is your life integrated?
So this is about to be a very exciting week for you, and I hope this practice will make you even more eager for that week to come. And you'll do great. My first experience of you was kind of a Q&A, and as I recall, there were some pretty good questions in there. I can still remember some of the specific ones. Now we're going to, our young people can head off for children's celebration if they wish, and we're going to sing one today.
We are marching in the line of God. We are marching in the line of God. We are marching in the line of God. We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the line of God. We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the line of God. We are learning 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 in the line of God. Oh, join us, come and join us, join us, come and join us in the line of God. Come and join us, come and join us, come and join us in the line of God.
When I was new to Unitarian Universalism, having found it as a young person looking for a spiritual community, only to discover I lived just minutes away from a large UU church in Houston, I was quite enamored by the frequent description I heard of this new church and tradition as being not for the faint-hearted. The minister even went so far as to claim that Unitarian Universalism was the hardest religion in the world. Some publicity materials from the denomination that I looked at the time called us small but mighty. Church members would boast that while we were a tiny denomination compared to the Goliaths of Catholicism or United Methodism, our power and influence was far greater than our numbers might suggest. The constant thread in all these descriptions, the thread that caught my imagination, was how Unitarian Universalists were viewed as strong, powerful, like some sort of spiritual superheroes in terms of our ability to impact the world. I was a young adult at an age where finding something greater than myself to believe in was a major developmental task. I believed my new church offered me just that. I enjoyed the feeling of superiority that came with all those descriptions of power and influence. Sure, nobody I met had ever heard of Unitarian Universalism. But too bad for them. We were the people who would change the world with our incomparable strength. I wonder how much of this thinking still prevails among us. Do you think of UUs in general, yourself in particular, as being really strong, powerful? In what areas of your life beyond this church do you flex your literal or metaphorical muscles and make things happen as you pass through? What does it mean to you to think of yourself or another as powerful? How do you know if a person is powerful or not? How do you make that judgment? Power struggles are always going on in many parts of our lives. We watch them unfold daily between the various leaders and branches of our government. Politicians never ever want to look anything but powerful because we equate effective leadership with getting things done, and those who get things done are people who are powerful. Where do you draw your power from? How would the rest of us experience your power or lack thereof? The sermon today is fulfillment of a winning bid in last spring's auction for a sermon of your choice. The winner wanted a sermon about power, saying that we don't talk much, if ever, about power. Which is a funny thing in a church, since most churches spend quite a lot of time talking about power. The power of God, the power of Jesus, the power of the Spirit, the power of the Pope, the power of denominational officials and offices. But not so much with Unitarian Universalists. We're most likely to talk about power in terms of government and whether we believe the government is using its power well or badly. Or we may sometimes include references to power in some of our discussions of justice work, calling for us to marshal our power to influence change in our community by voting or signing petitions, or showing up at protests or joining in boycotts. We often see our role as empowering others, giving others more power, which is all well and good and important, these usual ways we talk about power. But what about the sort of power traditional churches are looking at when they talk of the power of a higher power, God? Do we have any sort of notion of spiritual power? Because it seems to me one point of being part of a church might be to learn about one's spiritual power, or about spiritual power in general, how to avail oneself of it, what it looks like, what it does. The theme for our April worship services is transformation, a timely theme for a month when nature is busy transforming itself daily around us. And many spiritual traditions are marking holy days where a central event involved in overwhelming transformation. The transformation does not just unfold on its own, it's driven by some sort of power. Where does that transformative power come from? And how does it accomplish its transformative work? Now, the culture around us would have us believe that a person is powerful in direct proportion to how much they have. How much money, how much stuff, how many people they can boss around, how many votes they can command for what they want to do. Power is a numbers game in that view, and higher numbers translate into more power. While we earnestly argue against that notion with our talk of how a single individual can change the world, still, it's hard to get those numbers out of your brain. Because power is about movement and impact, and numbers reflective of power just make sense. More, of course, seems more powerful. So more of anything is always better. Always. Yet, how much more is enough? How much power is needed to accomplish something good? Because so long as more is the standard, There's an endless reaching that is never satisfied. To believe that power is dependent on numbers is to be trapped forever into either feeling powerless because somebody else's numbers are bigger than your numbers, or at best, less powerful than one would like to be because you'd like to have more numbers. If being a powerful church depends on having lots of members and lots of money, then how much of either members or money is required to be a powerful church? When does one stop adding or wanting to add more? Spiritual power, in contrast to most other kinds of power, is tricky because it doesn't look like our usual notions of power. In his mythology studies, Joseph Campbell noted a consistent theme in the spiritual journey of heroes and heroines when they had to face an ultimate battle without any weapons at all. The point of such stories was to demonstrate how power and vulnerability intertwine, and the sort of power that comes into play when a person lays down all defenses and stands wide open. Picking up that same theme, author Brené Brown argues that vulnerability, walking into the arenas of our lives, open and unarmed like animals spirits who face dragons without a sword or shield, that shows an ultimate power that's grounded in courage. In contrast to our usual understandings of what constitutes power and weakness, Brown uses her research and interviews to demonstrate that we're actually at our least powerful, our weakest, when we have all our defenses up, when we've got a wall in place to protect us and keep our enemies out. She likens vulnerability to those dreams you have about being on stage naked. To be vulnerable is to be emotionally exposed and apparently powerless. But Brown claims that being vulnerable requires a willingness to risk, a willingness to not know what my next move will be or what your next move will be, and yet to stay open anyway. Because I believe the kind of meaning and connection that can appear when I'm vulnerable is worth the possibility of being harmed. To see what this sort of power, the power of vulnerability, looks like in action, some examples Brown pulled from her interviews would be, and see if any of these sound like you. Sharing an unpopular opinion, asking for help, going on a first date after a divorce, signing your mom up for hospice care, admitting I'm afraid, exercising in public even though I know I look ridiculous, being accountable, asking for forgiveness, not sucking it in anymore, letting go of control. Our culture tells us to do whatever we have to do to avoid those sorts of experiences because those are when we look weak and powerless. And to fall into those experiences is actually shameful. Evidence that we carry some deep flaw. But Brown says just the opposite, and she has agreement on this from all spiritual traditions. What the world calls powerful is actually weak, and what the world calls weak is actually where real power lies. Power based on having lots of anything is an illusion. Real power comes when we let go, when we surrender, when we dismantle our walls, when we're willing to risk being vulnerable. Our most powerful people are the ones among us who will walk out into the arena, lay down swords and attachments and that need to look good at all costs, and stand undefended and open. That kind of stance, far from being the stance of a weakling, requires the greatest courage and demonstrates the most power of all. Safety is not guaranteed. Harm is a real possibility. But the potential for payoff in the form of being free and discovering a new depth of connection with others makes that a risk worth taking. We're entering the season of sometimes wild weather, when spring storms can do the sort of damage that results in power outages. A few years ago, the community where I lived experienced what is called a multi-day outage, after freakishly high winds blew down scores of trees and power lines in the area. While it's easy enough to be without power for a few hours, when the outage stretches on for days, one can imagine tempers growing short. I confess that I frequently came close to such a stage of frustration with my own lack of power in my home. But more what I remember from that time are the many evidences of grace, patience, even a sense of humor as we waited. A neighbor who owned a generator organized us around him onto a schedule where we could snake extension cords to have a couple of hours of power each day. A nearby restaurant, which had mysteriously escaped harm and never lost power, became a neighborhood gathering place for us to swap stories of our coping strategies and give each other encouragement. Several put together plans for taking meals and beverages to the electric company crews working around the clock. As homes came back onto the power grid, street by street, we shared in the relief and accepted the commiseration of those who once more had power while the rest of us were still without power. The usual distinctions that run through our lives between the powerful and the powerless were erased, as all of us figured out ways to share whatever power was there. You've likely known similar experiences. Power outages come to all of us without exception. Somehow, the power that seems so vital to all that we do and all that we are can be suddenly taken away, and we grow strangely softer, gentler, more attuned to one another's needs. How can something as ordinary and omnipresent as electricity change us into self-centered creatures? How can losing power then make us not more competitive as we're plunged into the dark, but less? The spiritual life has much more to do with subtraction than with addition. This observation by German mystic Meister Eckhart points to the primary reason all spiritual traditions concern themselves with teaching and warnings and guidelines and commandments about power. The ultimate goal is to move us beyond our usual assumptions about power coming from having lots to something quite different, so different that we may only know it initially as a feeling of being stripped of power, sitting in the dark of a house without electricity and not knowing when the lights might come back on. In that darkness, which feels powerless, we can begin to experience a deeper and mysterious kind of power that is present, but is usually obscured by our customary notions about power. Much as having the power go out can awaken one to the overlooked power of a community where people stop and actually pay attention to each other, being powerless for a time helps us see differently. To use our own Unitarian Universalist image, an experience of losing power, of giving up control, makes it possible for me to feel that interconnected web of existence at my back, all around me, holding me up, keeping me from falling. I can still remember the sense of relief when power came back on at my house. But I also remember a strange kind of wistfulness in the days after everything went back to normal. How something in me had relaxed during that prolonged time of being in the dark. How I felt both inconvenienced and free all at the same time. So I hold fast to that memory whenever the power I enjoy seems threatened. When we lose power, as we all surely will at some time, whether we lose it because of an electrical outage, a health challenge, a financial struggle, a relationship conflict, we may be surprised to discover a lasting power that is not dependent on lots of anything. It simply exists, manifested in love, present in every circumstance. Whether we call that power God, the interdependent web of existence, a nameless force in the universe, the beloved community, or call it by no name at all, that power sustains us moment by moment. And you don't have to plug it in, and it never goes out. We're in the last week of our annual stewardship campaign, and to give us an extra motivational push, I invite up stewardship chair Debbie Pierce.
Hello, everybody. First, I want to say I had no idea what Kathy was going to say, so it's kind of interesting how my stewardship story here kind of parallels with your sermon. I want to share my stewardship story. There are several people who really don't know it, I want to say I first came to this church in 2011. And I was really, truly a broken person. I know I say that, and people look at me and they say, "What? Not you." And, but I mean, I was depressed. I was daily suicidal. I was on mind-numbing medicines that I could barely think. I was seeing 2 therapists and a psychiatrist, usually weekly or every other week. And I was barely holding on to my job. So I knew something had to change. I had never been spiritual. I had never been raised in any kind of church. I had never really actually been in any church except to sign up for softball practice when I was a kid. Not quite the same thing. And so I convinced myself to explore spirituality before I kind of gave up the fight. But like I said, I wasn't Christian, I hadn't been to a church. So any kind of perceived spiritual space was really uncomfortable for me. I came here, I didn't know what I was expecting. I would like to stand up here and say that I walked into this church and my life immediately changed and I was saved. And for the new people in the audience, please don't listen to this next sentence. The truth is that it didn't change and I wasn't saved. In fact, the real truth is that I hated it here for the first few months. And I had to force myself to keep coming back. I was very shy and I tried to keep myself in music. Nothing here felt spiritual at first, but I knew something was here, I just hadn't found it yet. Nevertheless, I continued to come, I am very perseverant, and slowly learned that I was welcome for my true self, illness and all. But spirituality, that still eluded me. Then in the spring of 2012, an interesting thing happened. I sat down with Rose after one service, and we discussed pledging to the church. I don't know if you remember that, Rose, but we did. We sat over here. And I felt good about that conversation, and I noted that it felt good to commit to a church that was slowly starting to turn my life around. I discovered that when I gave my time, my talent, or my money here, I felt lighter and less troubled. And even now, when I pledge, and then again every Sunday when I put my check in the plate, I have a similar feeling. It would be simple to say that, sure, when we donate to causes, we feel good about ourselves, we're thinking of others, and that's great, right? But here's the thing, that is not what it is like for me. For me, it is not only the act of giving, it is the act of releasing, of letting go of my thoughts concerning money and resources, of letting go of control and micromanagement of every situation, of learning to let go of confining attachments. With this release, I find that I am also able to let go of some of my other thoughts as well, my dark thoughts, my dark form of self-control. And surprisingly enough, this launches me outside of myself into the realm of faith, into spirituality. There is a clarity and a recognition of actually what is important in the world. I pledge because this church has altered my life and continues to alter my life. I pledge because pledging teaches me acceptance, tolerance, and grace. I like the way Robert Thurman, an American Buddhist author, states this concept. Practice giving things away, not just things you don't care about, but things you do like. Remember, it is not the size of the gift, it is its quality and the amount of mental attachment you overcome that count. So don't bankrupt yourself on a momentary positive impulse, only to regret it later. Give thought to giving, give small things carefully, but observe the mental processes going on with the act of releasing the little thing you liked, or the major thing. I would also like to say, thank you, I would also like to say that this year, your board, as a group, has pledged over $17,000 for next year, and they have increased their pledges by, as a group, by 10%. And I think that's fantastic. So, thank you very much.
We have an opportunity this week to perhaps restore some power that has been wrongly taken away. Our mission and outreach chair, Bill Rainey, will tell us about that.
The evening of Wednesday, the 30th of March. I'm supposed to be loud, so she told me. The evening of Wednesday, the 30th of March, 2016, Trish and I attended the Take Back the Night rally and walk at U of L. We saw a young member push you there. Turned out Claire was one of the organizers. She was so appreciative of our attendance. On a Friday in January 2018, Claire's name was called out at the Interfaith Arms Compassion meeting in Jefferson Square Park, held to remember victims of violence in Louisville. On Thursday, 5th of January 2018, the U of L School of Dentistry held a memorial service for their student, classmate, friend, Claire Van Lanningham. Many of us from Bushview attended. Lynette Lowe spoke at the service. Wednesday, the 28th of March 2018, Claire was remembered with other victims of violence at the annual Take Back the Night event. This Wednesday, 10th of April 2019, UOL will again rally to take back the night. Claire's mother, Shannon Van Lanningham, will be there. Please come out to meet Shannon with opposed violence. Remember a friend to hashtag be more like Claire.
Thank you, Dale. Please rise now in body or spirit for our last hymn, remaining standing as we conclude our service.
From the light of this remember, on back Guiding hands and hearts and spirits into place at when the fire of holy place sets round against the light, when the hunger and the passion enter all us on when we keep the stars of the flame that comes on. In our promise, let's fulfill it in our future and all. From the sorrows of our evening, it's a song of rain. All the difference that witness to the life of winter. When the fire of years in the night is when our wonder and our passion be to all us on the way. The sorrows of the way that was and our promise was fulfilled in the dreams of your vision, birds are there from heaven. And the lights of your trust, you'll find our endless thoughts. When the fire of forgiveness and our hearts when our wonder and our passion is to call us on the way. When we take the sorrows of the flame that was then our promise was fulfilled, and the future and
Nice singing, all three of you who had a hymn. And for the rest of you, please refer to your order of service for the words of extinguishing candles. We extinguish this chalice closing words are from Unitarian Universalist Minister Peter Rabel. We build on the foundations we did not lay. warm ourselves at fires we did not light. We drink from wells we did not dig. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We profit from persons we never knew. All our lives, we were bound together in community. Shalom, salam, namaste, blessed be, amen. Please be seated for the first reading.